Hi, I'm Aaron Backay, and this week I want to talk about first fruits. Proverbs 3 9 through 10 says, "Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all of your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine." This proverb offers practical wisdom for how believers can approach financial decisions with a heart of worship. While it's tempting to spiritualize such verses, applying them only to our time and relationships, it's worth embracing the direct challenge: honor God with monetary wealth. To honor the Lord is to give him the weight he deserves, acknowledging his role as creator, giver, and redeemer. When scripture says to do so with wealth, it reminds us that money is not off limits to God. Rather, money is a vehicle for extolling his glory. The phrase first fruits of all your crops pushes this idea even further. It doesn't suggest we give God leftovers or spare change, but the best portion, the first and finest part of all we've been entrusted with. This includes income, investments, inheritances, real estate, and savings, and much more. We must examine whether we're holding back certain financial goals from God's influence. Are we clinging too tightly to tax efficiency, high returns, or a perfectly calculated legacy plan? Then comes the promise: your barns will be filled, your vats will brim. Often I've read this as symbolic, that if we honor God spiritually, he'll care for us practically. But what if this isn't just a metaphor? What if honoring God with monetary wealth leads to an overflowing eternal harvest, a spiritual legacy built on faithful stewardship? Recently, this verse came into focus as I considered how to invest for my own children's future. I explored 529 plans, custodial accounts, and other such vehicles, and they all have their pros and cons, their strengths and weaknesses. For instance, 529 plans offer tax-free growth for education, but often limit investment choices. Many growth-oriented funds within these plans may profit from industries that contradict our faith. The question is, would I prioritize maximum return to my family, or would I honor God first? Would I trust God enough to choose a less efficient way to save for college, believing that honoring him will provide more than earthly returns? Would God really come through for my children's future? These questions challenged me. Instead of choosing one path over the other, I considered a blended and different approach. I could hold growth-oriented investments in a custodial account where they could be screened for faith-aligned companies, while using a 529 for safer screened bond holdings. Yes, this approach is more complex and likely less tax efficient, but it allows me to honor the Lord with one of my most meaningful investments, my children's future. And someday I'll get to tell them this story as part of their discipleship, that mom and dad invested in a way that aligned with our faith, that we sought profit, but not at the expense of God's purposes or his character, that honoring God with our wealth mattered more than squeezing out every dollar for our family's benefit. How I treat and use the resources God has provided for our family is vital to our discipleship with Jesus and my discipleship to my kids. I feel the peace of God's promises in these decisions, that the barns and vats, the eternal ones, will overflow. I encourage you with these questions for reflection. Where is the Lord inviting you to honor him with the resources he's entrusted to you? Are there first fruits that you've deemed unavailable to God? How might God be encouraging you to honor him with the wealth that you steward on his behalf? And do you believe God will come through with his eternal promise of overflowing barns and cups? If you like this video, please like, follow, and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in.